Hey, Corey's here. Hi, Corey.
Hey, Corey.
Corey, I know him.
I know that guy.
I know him.
I was just
Um,
talking to him somewhere else.
what's up, dudes? How's your day going?
Busy, but we got to take a little break and play some video games. Not video game,
Yes.
web game. We played some team games.
Team games.
Yeah, how was game day today? I did not.
Game day was good. I haven't joined the last like three, so I made it a
Mhm.
point, despite the fact that I knew it was gonna I was gonna feel very rushed coming into this. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't
Mhm.
care. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna, hang out with the people. So
Hang with my people.
that's
Yeah,
right.
I
Steve.
had to.
Steve says the band's back together. Hey, 2 months in a row, we got the band back, baby.
I
I'm
know. Yeah,
rolling now. Yeah.
this is an actual streak at this point.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, I thought this was a triage call. It's the only reason I'm here. So I don't know.
Yeah. Wait, who's hacked? All right, so we always start with a random topic. I'm gonna start today. I'm checking a story.
You gonna
And I
tell
want
us
to
a
ask,
story?
I'm gonna tell you a little story
Story time?
and story time. And I'm gonna ask, what would you do? And I'll tell you what I've done. So last weekend, wake up and Erica, my wife, has a couple alerts in her email for potential fraudulent activity on her debit card. And so we're like, what's going on? Then we start looking and looks like somebody tried to order a camping chair and a loofah with soap from Walmart shipped to home. So pretty, like less than $100 total. But we did find another email of an order confirmation that came into her mailbox. However, the period, I'm not going to give out her email, right? But the dot in the email was in the wrong place. So someone didn't realize how dots work, periods work in a Gmail address, right? And so they thought they were setting it up in a similar account that wouldn't route to her. However, she still got the email. So then I was able to say, okay, it was from Walmart, and they obviously routed this account to your email box accidentally. Let me just open the app and see if I can log in as the attacker in this point. So get the Walmart app. Sure enough, I'm able to log in, verify, send a verification to her email to gain access to it. I log in and I see this dude's account that he created as my wife. And I see the order. We tried to order a loofah, some soap, and a camping chair. But then get the dude's home address. I get his phone number. I have his full name. Do a little research, find his email. I know where he works. I know how old he is. I know how many kids he's got. I know everything about this dude, right? And so then there's like a moment of like morality here. All right, ethics. What do I do with this information? So I'm going to pause there and I'm going to ask you guys, what would you do with the information?
I mean, it,
What
aside from the debit card piece, which is what I'm not sure I understand, how does that tie in?
do you
Because
mean?
you said that there was a purchase on her card, right?
Yeah, so he had her
Her
card.
card was stolen.
Yeah, a
Oh, okay.
stolen card.
Okay.
So, and like I'll be transparent. Like there's an AT&T data breach. We were in a couple of data breaches this year.
Hmm.
I'm sure everybody on the call has been today. And so I wasn't too surprised at that point. Like, okay, they got her card. Let's go through the process. And we secured that on our end. But yeah, so anyway, back to the question: what would you do in this situation?
I mean, realistically, I would report it to the authorities.
Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't do anything stupid. I'd want to. I'd want to do a
yeah,
lot of stupid
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Let's be honest. You know what I mean? Like, but
yeah.
I wouldn't because, yeah, like you said, kind of like a code of morality, ethics type of thing. It's like it's
Mhm,
just one of those things. It's like just because we can figure some things out doesn't mean we should go all crazy about it. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Yeah, I think that the closest I would do to crossing a line is I would buy another loofah and some stuff, and I would include a note with it and send it to them.
Thanks for the product recommendation, bro. My skin's never been so smooth.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the farthest I might cross that line is just be like,
Mhm.
look, I know all about you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
let
Mhm.
them know
Yeah.
in some form.
Yeah.
But I probably honestly wouldn't even do that. Like I said, I would just probably report to the authorities, close up things on my end, learn from the lesson, and you know, take a little
Yeah.
bit of a win that I was able to find
Yeah.
out so much information.
That's fair.
Li-
That's fair.
Likely that route, right? The only exception is how bored am I at the time? And so at the moment, I'm not bored, right? I'd pay good money to be bored right now. It'd be awesome. But if I was real bored, I might go as far as to send an email and just be like, hey, bro, here's your address and your phone number and all of these things. Maybe you shouldn't be attacking other people if you can't secure your own stuff. And just leave it at that and walk away. But, that'd probably be about as far as I go, I think. And then
Yeah.
report it kind of thing.
So I kind of went in the middle. I'll be honest. This is just us talking.
Yeah, no one else is
It's just
here.
us. Nobody's listening. It's not recorded, nothing like
I
that.
did stand up. I got another cell phone number, and I texted the dude and was like, "Hey, I can't remember exactly. I can pull it up, but it was like, sorry, I tried to order that loofah and a camp chair this morning." And he's like, "What? Who is this?" I'm like, "Just a guy who knows some things." But then I like try to give him now because really I want to know where he got the card.
Yeah.
Tell me the source of where you got this card, and this all goes away. I'll leave you alone. And I didn't threaten him or anything like that. I literally said, "Hey, I'm just a guy who helps people who've had security incidents, and I just would like to know where you retrieved the card information, where you were able to buy this card information." And then he went dark. And I was like, "Hey, I am going to report this. I'm filing with the police department in the city that you're in. However, if you just tell me where you bought the card, I'm not going to file a police report." And I think he got scared, blocked my number, stopped communicating with me at that point. And so, yeah, I just filed a police report. It's in their hands now, secured the card and moved on. Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, his arguments can be made like it is fun, but like now he knows it's coming. You know what I mean? I'd rather blindside him for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. I wouldn't say, I'd want to play little, I just want to be sarcastic about it. Like I said, I'd want to send him a camping chair and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I did say, like, I'll be honest, I looked at this guy, he seems like a nice guy, a normal dude, just, good family man, all those things. I said, you seem like a good guy, man. Like, not the type of guy who's going to be using stolen credit card information. So, like, just help me out a little bit. Tell me where you got this from. And I get it. He's getting hit up by a random number that he has no idea. He just literally, I texted him within 2 hours of him trying to make this purchase, and he's probably a little spooked and a little scared. I get that. Maybe I could have slow roaded a little bit more. But long and the short is, it's in the police's hands now. I stepped away. I wish I would have found out though where that data dump was, just to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, anybody would have done anything different in the attendee list here?
Other
than justifiable homicide.
Yeah.
I think we all know that's not a real option.
It's while we're waiting on some responses, it is always tough reporting people speculate because I think you guys both know, and I won't give any details where, but we had one where we found the attacker, and it was somebody who seemed like they had made good choices up until that point. And it was tough to kind of report. It was out of our hands, right? It was, the victim gets to report and that kind of thing or whatever, but it was tough to do that because it's like, man, this is a pretty minor thing and it's going to be really bad for this person. It's tough to deal with, but
100%. Yeah. And I kind of felt that way even reporting it with him. Like, it seems like a good dude. And like, I don't know, maybe he's a little down on his luck. He needed some cash. He didn't go for a big purchase. He was just buying a camp chair and a loofah. It's like, hey man, my wife's gonna get really mad at me if I buy this camp chair and a loofah because I don't got a lot of cash in my account, but I really want this for the camping trip coming up. And like,
that is very likely or very unlikely the actual situation though, right? Like the reality is there are plenty of people who do this. They make minor purchases on things to kind of test things out, see if they work, and then they go crazy with it. My wife worked at a pretty large company a while back, and she knew this person at work, and like he seemed like a good dude, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, generally, like she didn't know much about him, but she, had interactions with him and stuff like that. And all the things you're saying, like you do a little research, seems like a good guy, family guy, whatever, all these things. And then one day the feds showed up to their workplace and arrested him. He had been doing that thing, but with like 1,000+ cards, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And so who knows what this person's actually doing? They're probably doing it with several cards, and it's just a thing that they're doing on the without people really fully realizing in their life, Yeah,
absolutely. I like this, what Chris said.
Yeah.
Post a Craigslist ad with this number, giving away free kittens for every week for a year. I mean, that's still in the cards, man.
I mean, you totally still just do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. actually thought about sending him some inappropriate things to his house too. You know, his wife will be like, "Why did you order this type of thing?" You know, so.
I do know that sometimes too. I mean, I'm honestly surprised there was someone on the end of that number. You know what I mean? Things like that, because a lot of times people have when they're doing this kind of stuff. I wonder if he was new to it. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
it
Like,
had to be.
Yeah, it does sound like he was new to crime. Yeah.
yeah, he might have been new to crime. Because I know that a lot of people will have that stuff delivered to a different address. They'll have a number that maybe isn't like a Google number or some other kind of number, like some other thing that stood up or something like that. The fact that they immediately responded to your text says it probably was their phone. You know, they're
Oh yeah,
probably new
yeah,
to crime.
yeah,
But yeah, who knows?
yeah. What was concerning too is I will say like whatever data breach they got this from, it was a credit card, our home address, an email address, and a name associated with that. So it was a pretty good trove of data they had, which leads me back to my original inquiry. Hey man, where did you get this? I just want to, you know a little bit more, see if I can find out where this data source is. But yeah,
they probably didn't get it from the original source either, though. Probably would have been a hunt for sure. And
yeah, I'm sure it was, a dark website where you can buy 10 credit cards for $100. Boom, here you go. Let's move on. But whatever. I guess word wise to everybody: monitor your credit cards, your debit cards. Make sure that you are securing those accounts. Set up alerts for those accounts. For like in this case, we never use our card in this. It was in Corpus Christi, Texas, is where the guy was. Like, okay, so that flag an alert. And I was just telling you, Eric, about how annoyed I get with Chase sometimes over some of their restrictions. However, I got to give them kudos in this case. They were able to identify that as potentially fraudulent activity. And so without that, we would have noticed, but it would have been a few days. And it probably,
yeah.
Cool. All right, let's kick it off. So first article story to talk about today. Google Cloud is going to enforce MFA for everyone by the end of 2025, and they're actually starting to roll out this month. I think this is a win. Good news for the good guys. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. It was one of those funny things where it's like, I don't know, we get lost in our stuff, I think, so much. It's just like I'm so used to telling people enable MFA, enable MFA, enable MFA, enable MFA, that you don't even sometimes take a step back and be like, why isn't it just forced at this point? Honestly.
Yeah.
Like it's been a conversation for so long about certain things, and yeah, when I read it, I was like, yeah, why? I mean, how many, oh God, man, how many breaches, how many things are we involved in, like as far from the IR side, or how many times has my red team gotten into someone's accounts in Microsoft and stuff like that because they didn't have MFA? And like, why at this point? Like, just force it. Let's just move on,
Yeah.
Obviously there's still some considerations, right, about different types of things, but but it does take a big step in the right direction. I was really happy to see this.
Same. Yeah. My entire note for this whole article was just good.
Yeah.
So it's like, happy to see it, especially something as big as Google, right? I mean, there's so many accounts out there. It's so widely used. Like that's a huge step in the right direction. And the other thing too is maybe it prods some folks to go, huh, why are they turning this on? Maybe I should turn this on elsewhere and then go secure some other accounts or whatever. And so, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it.
Yeah, I have no doubt there's going to be a decent amount of people in the world who will be upset with this, right? With
Sure.
I'll be the first to admit that in some of my accounts, I'm like, I don't want to enable MFA. I don't care enough. It's too much work. Like it's like certain things. Like if I have a video game account for some stupid one-off video game, I don't want MFA on it, man. I just want to log in and play my game. You know what I mean, or something like that. Like if you hack it, go level my character up or something.
Yeah, level me up,
like,
bro.
Yeah,
I might want to share that account with my buddy so he can play the game too.
Yeah. Like I get it. I get the security can be frustrating. It can be an extra action, extra step. You know what I mean? Especially if you're like got a good password and MFA, but then to get that good password, you got to log into your password manager with its MFA, and like all of a sudden, logins these days can feel grueling. They can feel sometimes like I got to log in like 6 times. You know what I mean? There's 6 different actions, but like, yeah, get people used to it. There's going to be some people who are upset about it, but it's going to start getting people used to it. It's going to get kids used to it. Like there's so many kids and people that are completely unaware of security stuff are going to be like, why do I got to do this? And maybe they're going to Google it and figure it out and understand that this is a security thing that's going to help them a lot. And maybe they will start, like you said, to do it for other things. I think that normalizing these things like security actions and stuff like that for people can only help to, can only help us going forward. So
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
Developing the habit, right? That's what we're trying to do here. Is help people develop the habit. I think you hit the nail on the head for me. It's like, and hopefully invoking some curiosity for folks who are unaware of why we're doing this. Why is this important? And then they're like, oh shit, I should do this with all my accounts that aren't Eric's video game. Everything else, I should be following these same practices for. And so maybe it leads to more adoption throughout space, man. I guess the other good thing I don't want to glance over to, but AWS is doing the same thing, Azure is doing the same thing. So we're seeing more of the big players come in and say, nope, this is the new base level. It's going to be mandatory for everybody. And I support that.
Same.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
As long as they don't do video games.
Not on my video games.
No, I actually have MFA on most of those now too, because it's whatever. But one of the things I will say, like, talk about video games. I know a lot of people out in the world don't play video games. I was just have always done it my whole life, and I get a lot of people out there like, you should stop wasting time in your life. I'm like, I don't care. But I will say one thing that's really good about it is actually the video game companies, a lot of them have done some neat stuff with MFA. Like when I say neat stuff, I just mean like incentivizing people, not forcing them, but incentivizing them. So like in some video games, it'll be like, hey, do you want to trade with other people? You need to have MFA on your account so that we can and I think a lot of it is to cover themselves. Like they don't want to force it, but they also don't want to get all these support tickets saying, oh, someone stole my stuff or something like that, right? Like if someone hacks in and then they trade all their items away or something, right? So it's to protect some of that, but some of it isn't, and some of it really is just like, hey, we recommend you do this. We also realize that if we force it, it's going to piss a lot of people off. So here's a something for you, some kind of incentive, some kind of reason that this is going to be a good thing for you. And I think it's pushing people toward that, but in a more gentle fashion. And I'm for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just thought of something, man. Totally not related to this topic. That's okay. That's how it goes.
Perfect.
Right. We're a week past Halloween. We need to talk about Halloween, but Pinky, can we put you on the spot if we got time at the end of the day to share your Halloween story with everybody?
Wow. Yeah, that is on the spot, huh?
I totally on the spot. It's so good though. It's so good, man.
Yeah, I can probably make it happen. So
yeah,
we'll definitely save some time for that.
I agreed too with Eric in chat just now. Surprised at how many services don't have an option for MFA. It's 2024. I mean, it's rare that I do find services that don't have it, but we look at it all the time from a business perspective where we're talking about implementing some new tool or something like that, and we're like, well, does it have MFA? And how many times? I mean, there's a handful of times where it's like, no, they don't offer that. Why? Why at this point is it not even offered? That's insane to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess we got to also like share the caveat, like, sure, it's not a silver bullet, like we always say, it's not the end all be all. There are still ways to compromise those accounts, but it's still a step in the right direction. I love seeing us headed in that direction. The big thing, like we've been talking about, like that's what probably isn't going to be possible when we think about personal accounts in Google here. But like other things are like YubiKeys. I think that you have a YubiKey, right? That is a way to stop these evil proxy attacks. And so I would like to see more education on that for the public, because a lot of people don't understand. I was just talking to a dude this week. I got a storage facility here, put some of my stuff in, right? And he's like, oh man, all this security stuff is killing me. They made us put MFA on everything and it takes forever to get my code. I'm still waiting on my code and all this. And so they see it kind of like, what Eric was alluding to as an inconvenience, right? I don't really understand. Well, it's a good thing, man. It's helping protect your data, your company's data, and all that stuff. But I was like, have you ever heard of a YubiKey? Just to ask him randomly, he's like, no, what is that? I've never heard of that in my life. And it just made me start thinking, like, I don't know, if we could adopt a more widespread rollout for these hardware tokens, like we lower that threshold or that inconvenience for people significantly. So maybe we'll see a wider push for utilization of those devices as we move forward too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're always going to have difficulty in adoption when someone has to buy something for their, and look, YubiKeys are great as long as you've got them implemented away. You always have it nearby or something like that. But some people just don't have that ability. Like I own 5 of them. You know what I mean? Like, so I have one for all kinds of different situations. So like there's that. I've got one for NFC for my phone. I've got one for whatever. Like all these different things, but not everybody's going to do that. And so it can be difficult, but definitely educating people so they can make that decision. They can do those things is really the key here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was also concerning to me when I was talking to this dude too, because he was like, I'm just giving him my credit card for a storage unit. He's like, I swear, man, every week I'm getting 3 or 4 of our customers tell me their credit card got stolen. I'm like, oh, sweet.
This
is great. What did I just do?
Yeah, we tend to keep some reloadable gift card type things for situations like that. If it's somewhere that I don't really trust, it's just like, here,
Yeah.
you can have this one, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I put it on my credit card though. I do watch my credit card like a hawk. And so it's like, okay,
Mhm.
if I see anything, I'll know.
One of my credit cards has a browser plugin that can generate random cards, like like not your card number, random card numbers that you can use, for situations like that, online purchases or giving over the phone or whatever. But one of the things that also has, because I've had a lot of services, PayPal used to do that back in the day too. But it has specifically the option when you set it up and at any point afterwards too, for that matter, to go in and set an expiration date of your own on that card. So it can use it, and then like no charges can be done on it 2 days from now or something like that. So I like that too.
Who's the provider for that? I'm just curious.
That one in particular is a Capital One card. I didn't want to advertise someone's, but that one is, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good feature. I've heard good things about Capital One with their points and mileage anyway, so I'll check that out. And now I want to go check and see if my card has that option. I have no idea. Yeah.
It comes through. The option is only in a form of like a browser plugin. Like it's not like you can find it elsewhere that I know of. So yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. All right, rolling on. Next topic: SEC charges 4 companies over misleading SolarWinds cyber attack disclosures. So Avaya, Checkpoint, Mimecast, and Unisys got some pretty significant penalties from the SEC for how they handled their public response. I think this public disclosure of information regarding the SolarWinds incident. Avaya got fined $1 million, Checkpoint $995,000, Mimecast $990,000, and Unisys $4 million. Holy crap! So what do you guys think about this? I think it's a good thing. We could look at how they mishandled this, but like we always say, I mean, if you have that incident, you have the ability to control the narrative, right? And being honest and open and forthcoming with the information is crucially important, and really protecting your brand and your reputation. People are afraid to overshare. They're afraid of telling the truth can have negative impacts on their business. But now, like we're seeing from the other side, not only is it not playing your favor to not be honest with clients, those people that trust you and utilize you, but the SEC's coming after your ass now with some pretty significant fines.
Yeah. Well, and also the fact that this is coming out and they're coming after it makes it more public, right? Which is actually a bigger hit financially probably than those fees are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Same. It's a good thing. Look, we unfortunately in the industry, the side of things we work on, we see this or see the potential for this at least a lot, right? People being shady about disclosures and not wanting to talk about certain things or playing certain things down, acting like it didn't affect things as much as it might have. There's no evidence was our favorite term, right? There was no evidence that your accounts were compromised or that your data was stolen or that blah 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 blah, because there never is generally evidence of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was all I could hear reading this article was there's no evidence of exfiltration. It was like,
Yeah.
So
and
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, as big as this one was, right? Because we worked a bunch of these. This was huge, because it was the one from 2020, and it was one of those where it was pretty obvious that there was huge capability for this type of thing to happen. And so, yeah, I mean, trying to be shady about it and not disclose this kind of stuff, like, it's good that it came back to bite them a little bit. I mean, it sucks for them, and I understand why they did it, I guess, but at the same time, yeah, hopefully this is another step in the right direction of, hey, this is going to happen, so we need to be a little better about our disclosures moving forward.
That's a really good point, man. It was so widespread. There were so many entities that were impacted by this. Why would these 4 choose to be anything but honest and truthful? Because we all understood working in this space the impact that most businesses had. So it's obvious. Like I seen Unisys in their statement, they said their intrusion was hypothetical, whatever that means. Hypothetical intrusion that occurred as a result of SolarWinds. And I guess the independent firm that validated this incident confirmed there was 33 gigs of data that was extracted from Unisys. Scenario. Come on, guys. You have to do better. And even in this case too, like, I can gripe and moan and get on the soapbox about how, like, okay, if you properly configured egress and you were staging your backups, like we could have, prevented any impact. But still, even in this case, like for Unisys, this wasn't your fault, really. This was SolarWinds' fault, right? And because of SolarWinds there, you became victim. So even more so, like I don't understand the logic and why you would not be truthful and forthcoming with your information.
because whether it was their fault or it was someone else's fault, their stock still drops. So I mean, come on, let's be honest. Anytime anything negative happens to any company, right, or any publicly traded company or anything like that, there's always someone or more who's going, how do we lie to or hide this from shareholders so that our stocks don't drop? But that's not the right question, obviously, but there's always someone asking it, I feel like. And in this case, you know, I'm glad that someone's kind of going, hey, that's not okay in situations like that. I mean, it's not okay in general, right? But it's definitely not okay in situations like this where it affects a lot of people outside of stock prices. You know, let's be honest, like, cool, you want to pad that, you don't want to lose some money, but yeah, we gotta keep people protected too, and let people be in the know and be transparent about what's actually affecting them and stuff like that.
Yeah. You know, and one thing that was interesting too for me, reading through this article, I guess the fines were actually related to violations of the Securities Act of 1933 and the Security Exchange Act of 1934. When I initially seen this, I was like, oh, this is going to be our first real big story relating to the SEC disclosure rules that have came out in the last couple of years, right? It wasn't. This was two security acts that have been in place for almost 100 years.
Yeah. It's, I mean, a lot of times there's something already in place that covers some of these things, right? I mean, you know, definitely good to get some more of that out there, but yeah, I mean, almost 100-year-old rules you're getting hit with for your hypothetical breach. That was it. The hypothetical thing kind of kills me just after working some of these, right? Because there was sort of nothing hypothetical about that one. It was pretty cut and dry. You could tell when you had been hit by this one. I guess the hypothetical part comes into, did they move laterally and steal some things? And I'm sure that's what they were getting at. But yeah, just I don't know, man. That was a tough one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they meant what they said. They obviously were lying. I mean, like, because it's one of those things, like, they could have been in there. Well, okay, hypothetically, they could have been. Hypothetically, we were breached. But, like, that's kind of a statement saying, like, we saw no. When you say hypothetically we were breached, it's like someone could have, but they didn't, right? Like, it's a hypothetical situation. But they knew when they made these statements that they had been accessed, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem here. It wasn't even like there's no evidence. Like, this is beyond that. It's not even like there's no evidence that they accessed our systems. They did know it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, via details on that, they said a limited number of email messages have been, I guess, stolen, breached, compromised. In reality, they said 145 files in the cloud environment, which I'd like to see more details on that. Was that 145 emails? And so if it was 145 emails, maybe their statement wasn't that far off base, or what were those files? We'll probably never know. Checkpoint and Mimecast were cited for failing to disclose the nature of the code the threat actors exfiltrated and the number of encrypted credentials the threat actor accessed. I will say that I do think this sets precedents moving forward for the SEC disclosure rules. And publicly traded organizations are probably going to know now, like, oh shit, we got to take this serious. And because this was even before those disclosure rules were public, so I guess when I think about it, but it still sets a good example moving forward after those disclosure rules have gone into effect. Like, if you're publicly traded, you better damn well be following those rules, be forthcoming and transparent with the details of the incident. I think the rule is, like, if you have a significant incident or breach, it's supposed to be reported to the SEC within 4 days, 5 days, something like that. It's a very short amount of time from once you confirm that access has occurred.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it was short enough that it was almost concerning when we read it, because it was like, but they did put it in the once confirmed, and it's okay. But yeah. All
right, so as is tradition, guys, let's talk about FortiGate.
And speaking of hiding things.
Yeah, speaking of hiding things. So we laughed last month about how we talk about FortiGate every month, and when we're putting together our agenda, so you guys want to talk about FortiGate again, it's always so easy to find something in the news. So a little story about FortiGate. They had another O-Day. A researcher named Kevin Beaumont disclosed this 0-day on Twitter October the 13th, tried to elicit response from FortiGate. There was no response for 9 days. On October the 22nd, there was an article published by Ars Technica that was essentially detailing the O-Day affecting these FortiGate devices. FortiGate validated, yes, this is a known vulnerability. Yes, we're working on updating that. 9 days after public disclosure by Kevin Beaumont, But then as the story continued, it turns out this flaw had been known for quite some time, and it had been publicly exploited since June of 2024. That's right, 2024, last year. And it sounds like 2024. All right, this year.
Oh,
sorry,
so this
sorry.
year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this year.
Oh, okay.
2024. Yeah, I think I did say 23 earlier when I was talking about it. It's wrong. 24. So this year, so months, it had been out there. It had been known. It has been publicly exploited. There's 60,000 publicly available servers or systems that are affected by this vulnerability. And actually, FortiGate's response was on October the 25th. So almost, it was 11 days after Kevin released that information. And they released IOCs. They did release updates for the devices. But yeah, what do you guys think about this?
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, stop. We've been trying to we were kind of talking about this before we jumped on here too. It's like we've been trying to give a little grace, I guess, and be like, hey, everybody has issues, and that is true or whatever, but man, Fortinet just keeps coming with them, right? So yeah, I mean, as always, a bad move to handle things this way. It's just not good. It's not a good look. And now we've got to go back and try to figure out what happened with these and then decide, hey, was this one that needs to be, we need to go threat hunt for all these people who have it and that kind of thing. And it's just there's a lot of things that go into this, and it's still not fully confirmed, right? I mean, Fortinet acknowledged it, but they've not issued a public advisory.
No, they have. There's a CVE now.
Okay.
It's added to the CISA Kev. The hot name for it is FortiJump. So they have acknowledged it. There are updates available now for those devices. But yeah, I mean, and honestly, this isn't the first time that Fortinet's been in this situation where there's been a vulnerability that's been exploited. They've known about that. They've been working on the back end to try to develop those security patches for the devices, but they haven't told anyone this is going on. And to me, like, holy shit, man, this is as bad or worse than what we just talked about. You have to notify that risk to your clients right away. And especially at that point, if they're working for the patch, that means they understand the vulnerability, they understand what the IOCs are. Share that information with your clients and your customers so that they can at least monitor those devices while they're waiting for a fix.
Yeah.
I get this. I'm not saying it's okay, but I understand the question of like when you find out, when you're aware that something like this is out there and it exists and you don't have an immediate patch for it, people are going to be, I would be reluctant or hesitant, I should say. I'd be hesitant to say anything about it as well, to bring it to anyone's attention when we don't have a fix for it yet. I get that hesitance and that wanting to, but like at some point though, you hit a threshold where it's like, it's not okay to keep sitting on this. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a couple days or something like that while you're trying to come up with something, I get that, to an extent, because you're drawing more attention to something you haven't fixed.
Absolutely.
That's not a good thing. But months, like, that's not okay, right? Like, we have to get to a point where there's got to be a threshold that it's just like, you can't pass this. You've got to talk about it. You've got to get other people. Also, like, that all said, why is it? Because this is not, like you said the first time, it's also not the first, like, there's other people outside of Fortinet who have had this issue, right? Why is it that every time this happens, the moment it gets posted publicly, they've got a patch within a week or two or something like that? But like,
what were you
they're
doing?
working on a patch for 3 months and we haven't disclosed it because of that. But then as soon as someone makes it public, they've got a patch within a couple weeks. What's going on there? Like, I'm sorry when I start calling bullshit on some of this stuff,
Absolutely. Yeah, they know about it. They're working on it. It's not a critical priority to them, is what that tells me. Like, we'll get it done when we get it done. Nobody knows about this right now. But as soon as the public finds out, oh crap, let's go into high gear. Let's get this patch rolled out, which is what they should have done in step one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to be clear, I don't think any of us are actually just bashing Fortinet devices, right? We're not just saying like, hey, these are bad devices.
Right.
It's just, this is a really not great way to handle this, is what we're getting at here. And that's what concerns me is how poorly it was handled.
Yeah, this is happening with a lot of people, and this is the one that right now flags, and it is unfortunate that we have talked about Fortinet a lot, but yeah.
The vulnerability was interesting. So if you had a valid Fortinet, FortiGate certificate, you could use that certificate. If somebody had a publicly available FortiManager, you could self-register your rogue device to their FortiManager dashboard, and then essentially you get access to that FortiManager ecosystem. So you could see downstream devices, upstream devices. If they're using FortiManager as like, a remote access tool, you could access those internal networks. So this is a big deal and seems very trivial to exploit. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard if we're targeting an organization to come up with a certificate for a FortiGate device.
No, not at all. It is an interesting attack. It's kind of a neat one, right? I mean, just because you did, as an attacker, you did need a Fortinet device and then apply that certificate, is how I understood it.
I think so.
Those are hard to come by, but yeah.
Yeah, let's hop on eBay and see how much we get a use.
Exactly.
That's probably
they're not much, no.
Yeah.
And so kind of a neat attack, but yeah, also it opens up a lot. I mean, I think they kind of mentioned in that article too that you can even pull down configs, right? So you can go and look, hey,
yeah,
where can I move once I'm in? Different things like that. So
yeah, you can extract configs, you can get creds as well. You can modify configurations, you can access downstream devices. Pretty much keys to the kingdom, I feel like, if you are able to get into the FortiManager dashboard.
Yeah, I saw there were 60,000 devices on Shodan.
Yeah, 60,000
that were exposed as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get it. It's just like Eric said, there's a balance here. As soon as they go public and it becomes known, it becomes a bigger deal, right? It becomes a much bigger deal than it is. So like, it's a fine balance, but like, what do we do? Like, what's a better next step? Is it, hey, we at least send internal disclosures to our registered customers so they know, like, here's IOCs without disclosing the vulnerability. Hey, we believe there could be potential attacks. We recommend you deploy these IOCs in your environment. If you see any of these indicators, then contact your incident response responder or contact us, let us know. There's probably a median, right? A balance somewhere in between. So they could disclose relevant information to the client base without fully disclosing what's going on while they work to prioritize the security patch. And then also to like Eric said, it seems odd that this is the first time I've heard about that. They know about these things for sometimes months, but as soon as it goes public, we got to patch really quick.
Yeah. It's like where you're just not prioritizing this, right? You just have like, one person working on the fix, and you're like, it's fine, he'll get it done. And then you're like, oh no, everybody knows about it, throw everything at it, which is probably what happens.
Yeah.
But it's weird. It's definitely weird.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'll give a little bit of a whatever. The other side of the coin is like one of the things we're talking about before we went live with this session is that like all of the firewall, VPN, yada yada, right? All of these devices are constantly having vulnerabilities, constantly fixing things, right? I mean, if you look up the CVE list for Cisco, for Fortinet, for whoever, right? Like throughout the year, it's huge. So I'm sure their team is working on a lot of things, and I get you're gonna maybe deprioritize things that are not publicly known about and stuff like that, but you also have to put some priority in for the severity of things. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be, and I gotta imagine they are. So I don't know. It is a balance though that needs to be found, and months is just not acceptable, especially if you can knock it out within a couple weeks after it goes public. So could have been coincidence, I suppose. Maybe they were right on the edge, but
just need another day.
Yeah, and I still go back to just thinking about like, if I'm in a position where I'm utilizing these devices, like this is what we always say, like you don't have to put it online, don't put it online on public domain, right? Your FortiManager, people put it online because it makes it easier to manage that environment, right? But you can still have that protected internally, so you're not advertising access to FortiManager through public. Use a VPN to get to it if you're remote, that's fine. And then you don't have to worry about this shit, right? You're not constantly responding to these attacks. Now I get it when we're talking about like firewall level attacks, like that's a little bit different, but this was specifically focused on the FortiManager, and it has to be a publicly available device to be exploited. So why do we have that online to begin with?
I mean, I think it was, years ago I worked for a reseller of a lot of devices like this, right? And I mean, that was one of the big selling points was, hey, there's an app for your phone. You can manage it on the weekend when somebody calls in and has a problem, right? And so I think a lot of these things got sold with that convenience factor. And now we're kind of reaping the rewards, whatever of that.
They are the attackers are.
Yeah, the attackers are reaping the rewards of that, right? And so I think it's just going to be a shift back to keeping things a little more protected, and you know, the old grumpy guys like us who didn't trust all the cloud managed stuff are going, see.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to have to be a move back away from that, and
Mhm.
you know, we'll see if that happens.
Yep, absolutely. Other news, Cisco released a patch for critical URWB vulnerability in industrial wireless systems. This is a maximum severity, 10.0.
10.0, baby.
10.0, baby, let's go. In the
High
and I'm
score.
curious if you guys are familiar with the URWB protocol, the ultra reliable wireless backhaul. That
No.
protocol has to be enabled on the Cisco devices before they're actually vulnerable. I'm not familiar with that protocol. I don't know if you guys
Not even
are.
a little bit.
I like the name though.
It's cool.
Yeah,
it's
it
cool.
sounds ultra reliable with its 10.
I mean,
right.
I was sold at that part of the acronym, right? Ultra reliable. Yeah, man. So
when I read this, I'm like, well, hell, everybody's got that turned on. Who's not going to turn on
right.
the ultra reliable feature? Yeah, but so unauthenticated RCE here with root privileges on those devices. So if you have any of those devices in your environment, I would say make sure you're getting on that patch right away. I didn't hear, I'm kind of repeating, going back to what we talked about last month, we gave Cisco some kudos because if you weren't on an active service contract, they still gave you access to those patches they put out. I haven't seen if that's the case with these. I'm assuming you're probably going to have an active service account to access those patches, which you guys know my thoughts on that. That's a hot load of garbage. But yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you caught Steve mentioned in the chat there that it's on by default. So,
It is.
I mean, yeah. So, yeah. So probably a whole lot of vulnerable devices. But, oh, he's kidding. Okay. Sorry. Man, I didn't know. I mean, I'm wholly unaware of this protocol. I mean, like, had never heard of it prior to this.
Steve, you got to remember, dude, we're like Ron Burgundy up here. He will read anything.
Yeah.
Anything on the prompter. The URWB is like, it's a specific line, right? So it's not like everybody who's just got Cisco access points out there is going to have this. It's not going to be on default for them. It's going to be a specific line. It's for specific purposes, kind of more mission critical, outdoor, ruggedized situations and stuff like that.
Okay.
Right. And so it's not going to be everybody, right? And my understanding, I did looked at Cisco's thing on it, and it was a little unclear, but it sounds like if you're not a service contract holder, that you can still have this updated. It was something, because what it said in that area was something along the lines of like, if you don't have one, like basically like have some proof of like serial number and proof of purchase or something like that to say that you're eligible for free upgrade or update or something, whatever. So like, I think there's ways to do it if they don't. So they are handling that for those people. But yeah. I would imagine though that I don't know. I don't know if it's on by default, but I imagine in those types of devices it is. You know what I mean? Like it's probably because that is what those devices are for. And so it's like if you're buying one of those devices, it probably is set up or default, but don't quote me on it by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I think I missed that these were the sort of outdoor access points. I think that concerns me quite a bit more, right? I mean, those things have always made me a little bit nervous. You know, I mean, just to be fair, I have one here that is ACL to death and can't do anything but, you know, go straight out to the internet kind of thing. Because we've got a wide property here, and there's a need for it on the other side. But yeah, you know, some of those things have really long range, right? So if that's the case, this is, and you're using that to maybe connect two buildings in a heavily populated area, it's a lot of potential there to be a problem. So yeah, I hadn't caught that. That's actually a little more concerning than I thought.
Yeah, and you have to have access to the wireless access point or the wireless interface for it. So I imagine you have to be able to get connected to it. I haven't fully looked at the attack path because normally for it to be a 10.0, it needs to be pretty easy to access. So that is something I want to dig into more. But I don't have one of the devices, and so it is what it is. But I will say that, you know, one of the things obviously that is concerning is the reason it's a 10.0 is from the web interface, you can execute commands with root privileges. And so for people out there who aren't designing applications or haven't maybe done some of the, you know, kind of pen testing, hacking type things, I mean, most of the times people are designing things these days, they're designing them in such a way that the web interfaces are not running as root, right? They're running as another user, a low privilege user that can't do much and stuff like that. It can maybe edit a file specifically, and then that file is then taken and like that configuration or something like that is handled by perhaps a root or a a system administrative type setting, right? And so it's interesting when you could just compromise web interface and get root command injection. That means that some stuff's running as root that shouldn't be, which means that overall these things are designed in a way that is insecure, right? We see it a lot, unfortunately. I mean, like, especially with things like this, I think people want to have, they're limited on what they can put on different chips and stuff like that. The size of the operating system, how they do it, setting up multiple users and various things can be difficult to manage. It can be difficult to just house on different things. But it is one of those things that people need to get better at, and designing these IoT devices and stuff like that, where like these web interfaces shouldn't be doing anything as root. Like that web interface should not be running as root. So that's
also a really big hint for any of you web developers out there that are, setting up IIS servers and Apache servers and things like that. Keep that in mind as well, because that's still really common. Those running as like a system or, some kind of heavily privileged account.
Yeah, when an attacker is looking for a way to compromise the system, I mean, like, they might be able to get in. Let's say you compromise a normal web interface, you get in as that limited web user. The very first thing you're doing after that, I mean, beyond looking for some kind of vulnerability on the system to escalate in general, is looking at configuration or implementation problems such as this. Like, so one of the first things I'm going to look for is what is running as root. Is there anything running as root that shouldn't be? Is there another web service running as root? Because if I can compromise that web service, then I'm root, right? So that should be kind of a basic best practice when designing any kind of system, especially like device and stuff. We have worked with, as a company and as pen testers and stuff, we've worked with several companies designing different devices and designing different interfaces and stuff for kind of physical interaction with different things. And it's the first thing I always look for and make a recommendation on. It's like, don't run any of these as root. Don't do that. If I can come in from and attack it, it shouldn't be doing anything in a privileged manner.
Yep. I think we understand why people do that. It's not a best practice, obviously, but we're going back to, just talking about the FORA manager stuff again. Why do people put it on the internet? Ease of use. Why are people, developing these applications that are running as root? Ease of use. It just works. It makes it easier to make that work instead of putting in the time it actually takes to understand why it's not working with your limited accessibility, and then working around that to make the application efficient and usable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at it too, it's just like, it's about speed to development and stuff a lot of times too. If I said, hey, I need you to make me an application that allows me to make administrative changes to a system, well, then you're going to want it, like, if you're going to do it fast, get it up and running and going. Most people, especially if they're not thinking about security, their first instinct is like, well, then it needs to run in an administrative context, right? It needs to run in such a way that it can make those system changes. Now, the reality is that interface should not be. That interface should be making a change somewhere else, and then there should be some other form of worker that is administrative that can then do that, like take that change and implement it. So still, if I compromise that web interface, I might be able to reconfigure your device because I can change those configurations, and then those will go down the line. But at least I'm not executing commands as that thing. If I was to compromise and find that. So
yeah. Cool. One more thing real quick. We got to bust through it because I'm really excited for everybody to hear Pinky's little Halloween story.
I'm trying to waste time for Pinky right now is what I'm trying to
do. So I'll try to... Eric has seen my week. He's aware, but yeah, no. You're good, man.
Got done. I've already heard this, stroke of brilliance, man, and it's only fair that the world gets to hear it. And I'll update. I think I did the Not Before Breachless last year, right? Did I do that on here? I'll update that.
I can't remember if it's on here or not. That. If not, I'm going to make you do it now.
Yeah. So. It's Christmas month is next month. I'll do it then.
That's true.
I'll update that and we'll do that. So. Yeah, finally, just real quick, let everybody know, OWASP did release AI security guidance documentation this week. This comes after, so I think in the last 6 months or so, they released a top 10 list for securing AI applications. It's kind of in conjunction with that, so it's focusing on like how to prepare for and respond to deepfake events. A Center of Excellence guide, so best practices for usage, how to establish systems for risk management, how to develop and enforce policy, how to educate your staff on AI security, and then also focusing on AI security solution landscape. So how to secure open source, how to secure commercial LLMs, how to categorize existing and emerging products, and it also gives guidance on how to actually process those risks that they identified in the top 10 list. So I'm all for this. I think this is great. We saw a very, quick and widespread adoption of AI tools or LLMs throughout our space in the last couple of years, and not a lot of thought from my perspective and what I'm seeing on how to actually secure these applications, how to train your people, how to appropriately use them. And so for me, I'm all for this. I think this is a great thing. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I put it into an LLM and it told me it was good, so I agree. No, look,
Perfect.
OWASP is a great organization. They've been doing some great things on education around, security and web applications for a long time now. They're
Mhm.
very thorough. They develop, testing guides and secure, secure ways to secure different things and guidelines for that. I love that they're working in this space. I think it's going to be really, really good just in general for people. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I think everybody should take a look at it and
Mhm.
continue
The
to keep an eye
10's
on it
good
as it
too.
progresses.
Yeah, I think the top 10 is really good. I've looked at that, and
Yeah,
that's a great resource. I'm happy to see this on top of that. So let's keep rolling, keep this momentum going in the right direction.
Yep.
agreed.
All right, Pink, you ready to bless our ears?
All right. Yeah, let's do it here. Let's do it. Let me get so I do not have this memorized, so hopefully I can still roll through it here. But all right, so this is a story that we wrote internally. It is out on our FRSecure blog now too, if you want to read along. I think there were some slight edits just to make it look better for the internet. But this story is based on actual events. It's been edited for time and formatted to fit this meeting. Listener discretion is advised. So it's a dark and stormy Friday night. You've just dozed off, but are jolted awake from an email notification on your phone. You grumble and you stumble your way across the room to find your phone glowing like the moon. You click the alert as you adjust your shirt, and you yawn with a bore, just malware on the factory floor. Your EDR tools stop the process, good enough for you to get some rest. You click off the screen and go back to dream. You waken tomorrow, filled with sorrow, but remember, 2 weeks until PTO. Oh, to Dollywood you'll go. The weeks pass, and finally you're on Daredevil Falls, but oh no, your phone is blowing up with calls. You wanted to visit the Eagle Mountain Sanctuary, but these calls have you wary. You walk on over to Dolly's mountain home so that in quiet you may use your phone. On the other end of the line, you hear a whine. Your admin says with fright that the attackers came in the night. Early in the day, as he would say, the backups were nuked and all the servers puked. He explains the situation, and you'll need to end your vacation. With anger, you toss your funnel cake and hurry to cancel the milkshake. You shuffle the kids to the car, luring them with the Snickers bar. Rushing back to your room, which now feels like a tomb, a Teams call is open and the boss sounds concerned. We have to use insurance or the cash will be burned. The discussion continues while you review insurance docs, but out of the corner of your eye, a name makes your heart knock. You read Monster Mutual Insurance, and your telltale heart fills with guilt at your negligence. You see, weeks earlier you'd spoken to FRSecure, in your eyes just to be sure that you'd crossed all your I's and dotted all your T's, but now that discussion fills you with unease. In that scary talk, FRSecure walked the walk. We tell the truth, they said with pride, but from their words you shied. Our insurance company will be true, but now your shoes are filled with glue. You're stuck with a team that's far from a dream. In front of you is a nightmare of which you're hyper aware. You had read last year's blog post with Monster Mutual Cyber Insurance scaring you the most. Pinky had filled your heart with terror, though he tries to not be the scarer. Your fate is sealed in the hands of the crude dudes who you know to be all too rude. Your head spins and stomach grumbles. You pick up your cell with a case of the mumbles. You dial the number on the form. On the inside, you prepare for the storm. With a hiss and ill temper, the voice on the line gives you a slight tremor. Monster Mutual Cyber Insurance, how may we ruin your day? You explain the situation as best you can say. Please hold while we transfer you to our partner as your room suddenly seems darker. You wait and you wait. You had too much on your plate. You couldn't spare the time and needed to save a dime. Day creeps toward night as your anxiety grows. Your only company, a murder of crows. Finally, the line clicks, your knees shaking like sticks. A sickly voice comes on the line while inside you whine. Sup, dude? You gonna pay the ransom? Says the dude who thinks he's handsome. Absolutely not, you fire back like a shot. Help us out of this mess before we're laid to rest. Whatever, it's your funeral, bro, comes the reply. This is not a company on which you can rely. The line goes dead with a craggly dial tone. It seems that you may just be on your own. You fret and you sweat as you think of what next. Your phone vibrates and lights up with a text. This is the attackers. We know you have no backers. Your data is ours, and soon it will join others on the dark web unless you send us sweet Bitcoin. Your heart sinks. Now you know this is for real, and it really stinks. The attackers stole files and probably have them in piles. Soon your secrets will be exposed, and you may be deposed. These ransomware attacks, The nightmares never end. Oh, how you'd wish you listened to your friends. They tried to warn you to get your insurance house in line for one day into a disaster you yourself you may find. You take a deep breath and try to be brave, though you know the situation is quite grave. On meeting on Teams, you tell your boss through faint screams, "We need FRSecure, of this I'm sure." Though the network is blighted, your boss remains short-sighted. You must use insurance. What's with your insolence? Yes, sir, you utter as the room starts to blur. You pick up your cell and call back the IR firm from hell. Welcome back, bro. And at this point, you know this nightmare is a reality, and no more will you know Dolly's hospitality.
Nice work, man.
Man, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. I appreciate it. On such short notice, we should have thought of that before, but I love that. It's awesome. And now we've got a recording of it. It's going to be on YouTube, and I'm so happy about that. Great job. All right, well, cool. Thanks everybody.
Auto-tune. We'll make an EDM.
Some
mix out of
auto-tune,
it.
yeah, make a song
yeah.
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was not written by AI. I will say that. I probably should have. It would take some time though.
No, mad props to Pete. He's a natural storyteller and story writer, and he enjoys it, and he did a great job.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And he talks a bunch of crap on insurance, and he talks great things about the company we work for. So, win-win, baby.
Yeah, it's like all kinds of win, right?
What's up, dude? You gonna pay the ransom or what? The crew dudes. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in for another episode. We'll see you next month. Hopefully everybody had a great Halloween, and I wish you a fantastic Thanksgiving with your friends and family. Until then, have a good one. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.